Hey, sports fans, and welcome back to another brand new episode of EBC Sports International. I'm your host, Ken Cruz, coming to you from Washington, D.C. Thanks so much for joining us this week. And of course, I can't do this alone. So let me introduce this week's panel from just here around the corner here in the DMV, Alexandria, Virginia, EJ Gonzalez.
What up, Ken? What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us. And man, we got a lot to talk about today. NFL, basketball. Let's do this, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I hope you're ready. And of course, from the homeland in Quezon City, Philippines, Ben Bernaldez.
What's up, Ken?
From the sports world this week, first off, the NFL made multiple headlines this week as big name players, mainly quarterbacks, changed addresses and have already upped the anticipation for next season. EJ?
Yep. So there have been a couple unforeseen changes at the QB position for a couple of teams. Here's your roundup. One team that surprisingly didn't change their quarterback was the Green Bay Packers, who have re-signed the four-time MVP Aaron Rodgers. It was reported that it was a $200 million four-year deal, but Rodgers went on to Twitter to let the people know that that figure was, quote, inaccurate, but he's, quote, very excited to be back. What a sigh of relief for Packers, right? I mean, they were uncertain just a year ago whether or not they'd ever see Rodgers in a Packers uniform again, but he's coming back for another season. The biggest surprise that shocked the NFL world was the Seattle Seahawks trading Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos for Drew Lock, two other players, and a handful of picks. And the first quarterback for the newly named Washington Commanders will be Carson Wentz, who was traded by the Indianapolis Colts after just one season. Washington will be paying the $28 million owed to Wentz this upcoming season. And lastly, the latest on Deshaun Watson. He will not be facing any charges for the accusations of sexual assault or misconduct, but is still facing 22 other civil suits. That's the roundup I have for you. Back to you, Ken.
Thanks, EJ, and we'll talk more about that later. Next, we have the third and final part of the interview with the Yankees prospect Anthony Volpe with our New Jersey Bureau. Take it away.
New York City. Concrete jungle where dreams are made of. Because if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. For professional athletes, the pressure of playing in a large market like the Big Apple can be quite overwhelming, with high expectations. Players are either well-loved or highly criticized. But the pressure of being in a high-profile team like the Yankees doesn't faze Anthony Volpe.
I think pressure, like they always say, like pressure is a privilege, and I feel like that's the reason why I work so hard. You want to be in those pressure cooker moments. You want to be batting in the bottom of the ninth of the World Series. Like, that's why you do it. So I feel like the better you play, the harder you work, the more pressure is going to be put on you. And, that's what I want. That's what you play for. That's what makes the game, to me, so much fun. So,
The Yankees are Major League Baseball's most successful franchise, winning a record-breaking 27 World Series titles. The Bronx Bombers have many legendary players who are enshrined in baseball's Hall of Fame. One of the Yankees' most legendary players is Derek Jeter. Jeter spent his entire 20-year career with New York, winning 5 World Series titles, and is the favorite player of Anthony's mother, Isabel.
I remember him saying to all the security people that he's going to sign every single one of the people who was online, even though it was past, the closing out time. He said, let everyone stay that paid money to see me, and I'll sign all the autographs. So that was kind of like cool. That's the kind of like player that you want your son to be like.
Anthony's father, Michael, hopes his son can be like the former Yankees captain and Hall of Fame shortstop, on and off the field.
And in order to be really great at baseball, you have to really, really believe. You can't just say it to yourself that you are the best player on the field. But on the other hand, you don't want to be a cocky person. So my expression for Anthony was always like, you want to be cocky on the inside, but humble on the outside. Right. And I think that's the kind of player Derek Jeter was.
Yeah.
New York sports fans embrace all athletes who play for their hometown teams. If and when Anthony makes his debut, fans will warm up and welcome him with open arms. Carlo Valdez, EBC Sports International, New Jersey.
Thanks so much, Carlo and team. Lastly, we have some sports updates from the Philippines. Ben?
With the ongoing drama between EJ Obiena and his National Sports Association continues. After being excluded from the lineup in the SEA Games, the Philippine Olympic Committee decided to intervene and include EJ Obiena in the Philippines contingent to the 2021 Southeast Asian Games in Hanoi, Vietnam, happening this year. The Philippine and Asian record holder will be part of the 654 athletes in the regional games, despite his non-inclusion from the Philippine Athletics Track and Field Association list. EJ's name must be there, according to POC President Bambo Tolentino. The sports official added that Obiena, who represented the Philippines in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, is almost assured of a gold in the SEA Games. Obiena holds the Asian and Philippine record of 5.93 meters, nearly half a meter above the SEA Games standard of 5.45 meters that he himself set in the 2019 edition in New Clark City in Pampanga. It's both frustrating and disappointing if you don't see EJ setting a new SEA Games record in Hanoi, said Tolentino. Logic plays a major role here for the need to include him in the SEA Games list. This is his sports and his national sports pride. Obiena and Wico, the president of Patapa, have been feuding since November with Patapa, alleging the pole vaulter of falsifying liquidation reports of his allowances. Tolentino added that the POC already communicated with the World Athletics, which running legend Sebastian Coe heads, regarding Obiena's predicament. This wasn't the first time that the POC had to intervene with Patapa's decision, as it did a similar measure in 1985, when iconic track star Lidia de Vega was kicked out of the national team from the ASEAN Cup at Rizal Memorial Stadium. De Vega refused to join the national team's training at teachers' camp in Baguio City, resulting to Patapas chastising her. In other story, Filipino boxer Charlie Suarez and Carl James Martin are looking to win the World Boxing Association WBA Continental titles in their respective division this Saturday. Suarez 9-0 with 6 knockouts, who represented the Philippines in the 2016 Rio Olympics, will take on Filipino Igorot boxer James Martin with 18-0 record, who's 11 years younger than the 33-year-old Suarez, will face Cotabato's Ronnie Baldonado for the vacant WBA Asia Super Bantamweight strap. This fight is crucial for both of the players, for both of the boxers who is aiming to have a shot at the international boxing ring. That's it for me, Ken. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Ben. And that's all the news that we have for today. When we return, we'll talk some NFL. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Mr. Pwede! Bawal kang lumabas ng bahay kung dala mo yung nasa tagiliran mo! Mr. Bawal, ito? Protection lang to! Di mo kailangan yan! At higit sa lahat, bawal yan!
Ayon sa Omnibus Election Code, ang pagdadala ng deadly weapon sa araw ng eleksyon ay isang election offense.
Mr. Bawal, kala ko ba bawal magdala? Eh ano yung nasa tagiliran mo? Eto ba? Merienda lang to. Nakakagutom din kayang bumoto. Gusto mo? Ako si Mr. Bawal. Nagpapaalala sa inyo na ang delikadong kargada sa eleksyon. Uy! Bawal yan!
A public service message of Net25 for Mata ng Halalan 2022. Matatag, matapang, matapat.
Ani, ano ba? Yung anak natin, patahimikin mo na, patahanin mo.
Ayoko. Weird ng anak natin na yan. Hi, ako po yung nag-a-apply.
Marunong ka ba magluto?
Sana nga, maluto mo yung mga paborito namin pagkain.
Alam na namin ang sikreto yung dalawa.
Oo nga! Bakit hawak mo yan? Couple's necklace na yan.
Binigay sa amin ni Esmigong yan.
Esmigong?
Welcome back, sports fans. As mentioned in our stories before the break, multiple NFL teams had a facelift this week with trades. The biggest name to move so far has been Russell Wilson, who was traded from the Seattle Seahawks to the Denver Broncos. Denver gave up quite a haul to acquire the Super Bowl champ with 9 Pro Bowl selections in his 10-year career. Now, my first question to both of you, the panel. Was the trade worth it? Let's start with EJ. Was this trade worth it for Seattle?
Was it worth it for Seattle? I mean, I would have to say yes, because of the amount of picks that they got for Russell Wilson, right? I mean, Russell Wilson last season pretty much missed a majority of the season with that injury to his finger. And the Seattle Seahawks did abysmal. They didn't show up and meet expectations that were already set previously by the success that Russell Wilson has led them to. Now, the reason why I say that they won this trade, or that it's a good trade for them, is because of the picks that they got. Honestly, I guess they didn't make it publicly known, but I think the front office went into the offseason and decided to blow up the team and start from scratch. Like, after they decided to let go of or trade Russell Wilson, shortly after, we find out that they also let go of Bobby Wagner, their linebacker, and that was huge. It's crazy because when he was asked, or he actually went on Twitter and said, Bobby Wagner, that is, he says, quote, "Crazy part about all this, I played there for 10 years and I didn't even hear it from them that I wasn't coming back." I mean, it's always hurtful when you hear a player saying that the front office didn't even have the respect to tell them that they were, going to be off or let off of the team. So I know, I'm sure a lot of Seattle fans are scratching their heads and they're hurting big time. Shout out to Mike and Albert, the Seahawks fans of this group. They're going to be looking at a couple of miserable years, and that's just what happens when a team decides to blow up, right? I mean, but it has been proven to be a success at times. One team I do recall at the top of my head, who is infamous for letting go of players for an onslaught of picks, is the OKC Thunder in the NBA. They always do this because they're always focused on the future. And they've had successful seasons. They haven't won any championships, so that might not be in the cards for Seattle fans anytime soon. But, fresh start is what they decided to go with. And the first domino to fall was Russell Wilson. And I think Seattle, they get what they want, but the fans, they're not getting what they want.
Yeah, no, I think, to your point, one of the benefits of getting all these picks, we'll talk about, what they can do with the picks a little later on. But as far as like one of the benefits of getting all these picks, kind of like revamping, restarting, and starting from the ground up, is that the other 3 NFC West teams are killing it right now. I mean, all 3 of those teams made the playoffs. And I mean, they all have young or at least strong talent that'll keep them strong for the at least foreseeable future, right? Yeah. So the Niners, I mean, they have, Deebo Samuel. That kid's gonna take them very far. I mean, the Rams obviously just won, go Rams, and then the Cardinals, even though Kyler Murray doesn't look so great right now, I mean, that's still a great piece to keep the franchise, strong. The Legion of Boom has been gone for quite a few years now, and I think this is, if there's a time to scratch it off and start all over, I think now's the time. Now let's go to the other team, the team that received Russell Wilson.
Right.
Now, was this trade worth it for Denver, Ben?
Well, the Broncos were obviously going nowhere with what they had. Given the state of the AFC West, do they really want to stay with that kind of situation for the next decade? And making this move really makes sense for them. 100 times better. And I think this is the biggest move by the Denver Broncos in their history. Acquiring Wilson in the roster, and he's a great quarterback if he's healthy. And I think he also inherit a great team. He has, and then this makes a difference for Broncos, and probably they will be a contender in Super Bowl come next season. Now, I think he is a proven quarterback, and this team can really finally, make a contention, and it's going to be exciting for their team. If I'm a fan of Broncos.
Yeah, no, I mean, I gotta correct you over there. The greatest move they did was getting Peyton Manning, actually, because that got him a Super Bowl.
Yes,
but this might end up being. I mean, if they win multiple Super Bowls, this might end up being the greatest. I mean, it's a little too early to talk. And Russell Wilson has had 10 seasons already, but I mean, look at Tom Brady. You can have double that, no problem, and still be an elite quarterback. So Russell Wilson has a lot of time still, as far as his arm and his leg. So I think as far as who won the trade, that's for the future to show. But now let's go back to the Seahawks real quick, EJ. I mean, we talked about the picks. And you also talked about Deshaun Watson earlier regarding, being cleared of those charges. Now, one of the teams that are eyeing him hard, and it's also reported that there's a high chance that they might actually get him, especially since they have all the picks, are the Seattle Seahawks. Knowing what Deshaun Watson is going through off the field, do you think this is a smart move for Seattle?
Well, if they're looking for a quarterback of the future, Deshaun Watson is the main guy to be targeting, right? I mean, yes, he was cleared of those accusations for sexual assault and misconduct, but he's facing other civil suits that is still ongoing. So is he even available to be on the field? And we've talked about this over the last couple of weeks. It's been a popular quote: availability is the best ability. And if Deshaun Watson's not available, then how good will your team be? I mean, you do have the stockpile of picks now that to throw in for a trade over there for the Texans. And since Deshaun Watson hasn't been able to play, I think they're listening to all offers. So I mean, it's a good move. It's a good thing to have all these trade assets if you're a Seattle fan, and if you land Deshaun Watson. I'm telling you, everybody's emotions are going to go from down all the way back up because they replaced a Russell Wilson with a highly talented, caliber
a younger Russell Wilson, pretty much, right? I mean, and one thing to note is that everyone was scratching their heads when the trade initially happened because why wasn't Teddy Bridgewater included in that trade? Now, especially if this Watson trade does come into fruition, it makes sense. Maybe they had some talks, with Houston, trying to figure out, all right, what do you think is going to happen here? I mean, the NFL, picking up controversial players, Ben Roethlisberger, Tyreek Hill. I mean, those guys had some controversies off the field, and look, they still ended up being with their respective teams. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of leeway as far as closing the door on a career. But what are the fans going to say about this if it does come true? What are the Seattle fans going to say? So, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of times a win will bring a lot of forgiveness, but that time will tell, right? Now, let's go. While one Super Bowl champion QB moves, another Super Bowl champion QB stays. As EJ mentioned, after much speculation and dry, cold sweat from the state of Wisconsin, Green Bay fans were able to rejoice at the news that Aaron Rodgers has decided to remain a Packer. Now, there are some concerns here as Aaron Rodgers has still not reportedly signed the deal, and the details of that deal have not been made public. But let's assume that the deal does get done and Rodgers remains a Packer. Ben, was this the right move for the Packers?
Well, I think the Packers have been sticking with that idea of keeping Rodgers in their team, and we've seen them not making some, trying to get other quarterbacks in the market. But I think with if he does sign with the Packers, I think they have again possibility of being a contender again. Rodgers is an MVP quarterback, and with this returning to the team, I think it's going to make another run for the Packers come next season. And I think it's already a done deal. I think with the offers given to him for $200 million, guaranteeing him for that amount of money, and I'm not sure if it will help the Packers be a Super Bowl champion, but I think they can be a contender if he returns.
Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, it's. I mean, the success of the team will rely on his shoulders, and unfortunately, the last couple of playoffs, he has not proven that he has been. He was the Aaron Rodgers that we all thought he is during the regular season. Now, EJ, let's ask you. I mean, Ben said it's the right move for the Packers, but was this the right move for Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. We don't know the details of the contract, right? And it's all about the money for the player. So if it's a good idea for him, if it's a good deal for him, we'd have to know the numbers. It was speculated that it was $200 million for 4 years. That's a lot of money for a 4-year deal. And it is a done deal, though, because he already tweeted that he's excited to come back as a Green Bay Packer.
Sure.
So,
but I mean, my question is that.
Yeah.
Do you think he could have thrived better elsewhere?
No, I don't. He knows the system very well over there in Green Bay, and he's acclimated when it comes to diversity and weather. Changing that is going to be a culture change, and might be culture shock for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the guy has proven to be the most elite quarterback in the NFL. I mean, 4 MVPs and currently the reigning MVP of that is the regular season. The biggest thing now, though, he stays in the NFC, and guess who just decided to retire during the offseason? Tom Brady. So that's one quarterback that he no longer has to face in that conference.
Yep. It's a cakewalk to win his division too, right? I mean,
exactly.
That's an easy win, and like his 2 best weapons, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams. I mean, you're not going to get any better than that. So exactly. I think the biggest concern for Green Bay is Aaron Rodgers' mental fortitude in high pressure situations, right? I think that's where the weaknesses come, and I don't think anyone, the Green Bay Packers or Aaron Rodgers, can really expect success if Rodgers isn't right and aggressive when they really need him in crunch time. Now, let's stick with you, EJ. Let's proceed to EJ's topic of the week. Carson Wentz to the Commanders. Whoa. Was this a blockbuster trade or what? EJ, just let me get your thoughts on this, man.
Yeah, man. Commander Carson. It's going to be his new nickname, bro. Commander Carson. Bro, it's crazy. Carson Wentz, let's not forget the season that he had when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. he gets injured, but he was having an MVP type performance. He was ready to win MVP that season. All of a sudden, he gets injured, but Nick Foles steps up and leads them to a Super Bowl. So technically, hey, Carson Wentz is a Super Bowl quarterback. That's the thing with Carson Wentz. You never know what you're going to get. If he plays great, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. But he has such bad lows as well. And you got to take both. I mean, just look at the Indianapolis Colts, who gave up on him after just one season. This is after they were in prime position to make a playoff spot. You got to win one game out of two, and he fails to do it both times. And then the biggest... Exactly. Oh my goodness. And the biggest thing though that many around him are saying is that he's not a good leader.
Correct.
And he refuses to harsh coaching. So I mean, Ron Rivera, one of the most stern coaches in the NFL, if he's not able to hold him under his reins, then what is the Commanders doing? This is not a long-term solution to me unless he proves that he can play at a high caliber every single game and win games that are important. And for us, the Commanders, it would be every single NFC East game. That's an important game. And if he's able to give us a winning record against the NFC East and bring us to the playoffs, it'll be proven that it was a good move. But until then, I'm scratching my head and I'm kind of nervous for next season.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll leave it at that. And I mean, NFC East is the NFC least for a reason.
Yep.
But I mean, it can be either way, right? I mean, last question, I'll just ask you real quick. Are you guys winning your division next season?
I don't think so.
I put you on the spot. Sorry, sir. But great takes. Thank you to you and to Ben. We have some more. We need a quick break, guys. And when we come back, we'll switch it to NBA talk, which I know everyone's excited about. EBC Sports International. We'll be right back.
Bida sa pelikula, sa commercials, sa game shows, sa puso mo.
Welcome sa ating bagong show! Kung saan hindi ako, pero kayo ang bida.
Mga kwentong may puso at tumatago sa puso.
Gusto ko lang po talagang ma-share sa kanila na they are not alone.
Gumawa ka ng kabutihan kahit mawala na yung kita mo lahat. Bida!
Tinuruan namin yung mga magulang kung paano gumawa ng mga localized solar.
Pati ang mga home daddies, kasama sa kwentuhan. Kaya maging bidarkada na kasama ng ating feel-good host, Aga Mulak.
Let's be the light of kindness in this world. Ito po ang Bida Kayo kay Aga. Marami mang pagbabagong dala ang pandemya sa bansa, hindi naman nito na bago ang katatagan, pagsisumikap at diskarte ng mga Pilipino. For them, it's business as usual when it comes to developing and offering world-class products and services. In this episode, we will talk about the Philippine entertainment and advertising industry with Arnold Vegafria, chairman of ALV Group of Companies. Listen to inspiring stories and tips on how small businesses can navigate the new normal as we feature outstanding business leaders and personalities at the Global Trends Business Leaders Awards 2022. All these in this episode of Open for Business.
Welcome back. You're watching EBC Sports International. I'm your host, Ken Cruz. Let's talk basketball in what may be the Lakers' most embarrassing year in a while. LA is now 28-37, sitting in 9th place. and trying to hold on and getting into that play-in tournament. Awesome. Before the season started, many criticized the makeup of this roster as a team of no defense, no spacing, and extra aging. All of those fears came true, and then some, as the Lakers have been riddled with injuries and have just looked atrocious on the court. Just a bad product, guys. Now, the King, LeBron James, has had a stellar season so far when it comes to individual stats, and he continues to break record after record just of longevity. But the thing is, he's 37, guys, and he has an ailing left knee, and that's already taken him out of a couple of games. Ben, is it time for the Lakers to shut down LeBron?
Well, Ken, I believe so. Losing to the worst team in the Western Conference last Wednesday night, Houston Rockets, and falling to 28-37 on the season. I think the Lakers only have won just 2 of their last 11 games, and LeBron James is going to shut it down early. His season probably the second week of April, when the Lakers bounce out of the play-in tournament. And I don't think he will risk that. And the Lakers still playing in the June. I think LeBron is going to end the regular season, and that is not going to be a surprise for many who are probably getting frustrated about how the Lakers was playing this season. LeBron James built this roster. He could have demanded for DeMar DeRozan rather than Russell Westbrook. And especially with DeMar DeRozan really playing an MVP caliber this season with the Bulls, I think that was a bad choice for him to recruit Russell Westbrook in the Lakers roster. And I think LeBron will get the rest he needs. Probably, of course, Lakers are not going to be in the playoffs, and I don't know if making a playoff run is still a good idea. It's going to be a long shot for them. But I think LeBron as an individual player, he's a great player. Probably he just needs to focus on chasing those records for himself. But for this team, I don't think so. Probably just shut it down and rest for the rest of their season. And think the Lakers should think over if they should dealt LeBron James and try to rebuild.
You said the quiet part out loud, Ben, and that is LeBron chasing the records for himself. And I think that's essentially the only reason why he's playing right now. I mean, it's one of those things where he's chasing Karl Malone to get number 2 on the all-time scoring list for regular season. And I mean, like, it's one of those things where he knows that, yes, it's a wash season, but numbers are numbers in his overall resume. But let's go to EJ. Thoughts on that real quick. You can give your couple thoughts. But my main question for you is, what's the best case scenario now for the Lakers as a team? Is a playoff run even possible?
The best case scenario for them is them to win the play-in tournament. But the crazy thing is, because they're not making 6, man. They're way behind. They're almost 10 games back from the 6th spot, right? Nice. And there's only a month left in the season. So best case scenario, they have to play the play-in tournament and have to win to make it to the playoffs. You know who's going to be looking at them at the 8th seed is either the Phoenix Suns, because they're 8 games ahead at the number 1 spot. But if they get the 7th seed, right? If for some miracle the Lakers get the 7th seed, they'd be facing either the Memphis Grizzlies or the Golden State Warriors. So best case scenario, you face the Grizzlies because they're a young team, don't have a lot of experience. Do they have a playoff run? Is it feasible the way that they were playing this season? No, they've proven time and time again that they're not able to hang with the top teams, let alone the mediocre teams. I mean, they just lost to the Houston Rockets, right? And you weren't here last weekend to defend yourselves. I
didn't need to defend myself. We as
the panel, after the Lakers have gotten swept by the LA Clippers this season, we have dubbed it now Clipper Nation. Sorry.
Oh no, I mean that won't happen at all. That's let's be real. Even their coach Tyronn Lue said that's not the case. So let's be real here.
But they have their number. The Clippers have the Lakers number for the last 2 years now.
They do. I mean, like they've had their number for the last like 10 years. But I mean, who's counting? But still, like, where are the championships from the Clipper Nation in the last 10 years?
Yeah, that's the only thing that they're missing. If they win one,
that's a big thing, right?
It's over. That's a big thing. It's a big thing.
I mean, I got to give the Clippers credit. I mean, they don't have their two largest stars, right? We can't even say that we don't have Anthony Davis. They don't have Kawhi Leonard or Paul George. And they still swept us. So, I mean, not much to defend there. But speaking of defense, there's a lot more Laker slander later. For now, let's go to the much-hyped Philadelphia 76ers and Brooklyn Nets game that happened last night in Philly. The Philly fans were ready with mouths frothing, to boo and show their appreciation, or lack thereof, to Ben Simmons, who didn't suit up but was in attendance and supported the team from the bench. James Harden also had his reunion with Kyrie and KD, who were his teammates just last month. Unfortunately, though, this game was extremely one-sided as the Nets dominated the 76ers and skipped along to a 129-100 win. EJ, everyone was talking about Ben before the game, but the biggest story of the night was the disappearance of James Harden. It seemed that there was a world of a class of talent as Harden is. He seems to cower and not deliver under the bright lights. Measly 11 points, 3 for 17 shooting, 4 turnovers last night. Is this something that the 76ers and Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid should be worried about going into the playoffs and pushing for a championship run?
I mean, James Harden is a better situation that he is now with the Sixers in terms of seeding for the playoffs, right? And when you're playing with Joel Embiid, you have a shot. The biggest thing is he's proven time and time again, as you mentioned, he folds under the bright lights. He's done it in OKC. He's done it in Houston. I mean, in Brooklyn, he shut himself down and got himself a trade out of there. But this was a big game for James Harden. It's a statement game, not only for James Harden, but also Brooklyn Nets. They had their number. They were ready to attack them because Harden, forced him his way out of there where he could have stayed with them and contend for a championship. He still can contend with the Philadelphia 76ers, but the concern is there because James Harden has been so good in the regular season, a lot like Aaron Rodgers. However, Aaron Rodgers has won a championship. James Harden hasn't gotten past the Western Conference. I mean, he's made it to the finals with OKC, but that's where he folded, in the finals with OKC. So for them, it has to be a concern, but they knew what they were getting with James Harden. It does, they made me flip-flop. James Harden, the way that he's been cohesive with Joel Embiid the first few games, they haven't lost. They look amazing together. Then you face your old team that should have been circled on the schedule
that you might see again in the playoffs.
Yes, and it would be a first series round,
without
possibly even right, possibly even a first round series. I would love to see it. But yeah, Doc Rivers and the Sixers organization are aware of James Harden's history. It has to be a concern because that's what he's shown year after year.
Yep. Now Ben Fernandez, not Ben Simmons. This Nets team proved that having both Kyrie and KD on the court is deadly on offense. How much more improved will they be once your namesake Ben Simmons eventually steps on the court with them?
Oh, first of all, Ken, I need to, just to add to what EJ said about Harden. Like I've said it from our previous episode, I'm glad that the Nets dealt with Harden. They let go of him and exchanged for some great players like Seth Curry, who did really well during that game. Huge. Scoring 24 points, I think, comparing to 11 points of James Harden. And I think that was a great move by the Nets. And I think also I've read some of the comments in social media that KD and Kyrie, they mentioned that they were playing for Ben Simmons for that game, and we could see from onset of the game how their intensity and their eagerness to really win that game. You can see their body language and how they played was really intense, and the result, you've seen KD and Embiid going at it together, and I think it's going to be a dangerous combination, especially with Kyrie. You can see, because when Harden was with the Nets, you can see there was something wrong if they both play together. But now he's already with the Sixers. I think Kyrie has this luxury of controlling the tempo of the team, and with the addition of Ben Simmons, I think it's going to be a great team to beat, and they're going to be a dangerous team as well. And I think the camaraderie of the team, as you can see, that Kyrie being a team player, fighting, they said they were playing for Ben Simmons, and I think that says a lot. And it's exciting to see if Ben Simmons would really do well in his new team.
Well, that, and like you also got to think about it this way, like, yeah, Ben Simmons might be odd as far as on the offensive end, but on the defensive end, he can cover the best player instead of Kyrie trying to do that. I mean, they have other players that can do that, like Seth Curry too, but Ben Simmons on defense is nasty, and he can guard 1 to 5, especially the fives that teams are putting out nowadays, which are small ball fives. Now let's go talk about, speaking of defense, speaking of hot teams, the hottest team in the NBA right now, the Boston Celtics. Celtics struggled early in the season with their new coach, Ime Udoka, and it seemed like it was going to be a wash of a season for them, but things started really clicking, especially after at the end of January, and they're now on a 15-2 run with the third best rated defense in the NBA. Ben, is this team legit?
You're correct, Ken. They're the hottest team in the league, at the moment. I think that's indicative of how good the Celtics have become in the second half of the season. They're playing their best basketball right now and have become the winningest team since the turn of the new year, with the league leading defense and a top 10 offense. And I think with the young core, and Boston has been the Eastern Conference Finals 3 times since Pierce's departure, and we've seen that the Celtics have been out of the finals since 2010 with Pierce and Garnett, and the Celtics have won also 22 of their last 28 games, entering Friday's game and having climbed to the 5th place of the Eastern Conference. Jason Tatum is playing like an MVP at the MVP level, averaging 42 points, and the rest of his teammates as well playing really well. They're going to be a contender in the finals, and this young team could really make a difference. And I hope this continues, how they play basketball. It's going to be an exciting NBA Finals this season.
Yeah, EJ, leading the helm for the Celtics is that bad man, Jason Tatum, put up a 50 burger last week. Talk about him. I mean, is
followed
this
it up.
The truth?
Followed it up with 44 points right after. He's leading the Celtics, definitely. And I think, the past couple of seasons where it was Kyrie running the show, and even at the time it was Kemba Walker running the show. But now that, those guys are gone, this is Jason Tatum's team to take control over. They have been riddled with injury as far as Jaylen Brown, his running mate, not being able to be there, and even Marcus Smart. And he himself has faced a couple of injuries. But, I mean, the way that he looks now, he can be the next face of the NBA. Jason Tatum, the next face of the NBA, once, King James decides to retire, whenever that would be. But, I mean, he is looking spectacular. The guy, he's fun to watch, man.
Yeah, agreed. Highly agree. And I hate the fact that he's a Celtic, but it is what it is. Great talk, guys. More to come after the break. Do not go anywhere.
Welcome to Mobile Legends!
Panoorin ang mga bentang-bentang hirit ng mga tara-gamers nating tindero at tindera. Anong kulay ang asin dati, 25 years ago?
Brown.
Magkano itong isda nyo? Yan ba isda nyo fresh ba
mura
yan?
lang. Parehas ang timbangan. Parehas na parehas, parang antindera lang.
Ngayong linggo sa Tara Game! Agad! Alas 7 ng gabi sa Net 25.
Insidente ng mga nahulog na sasakyan sa isang patubig sa Plaridel, Bulacan, inaksyonan. Grupong umaalalay sa mga sanggol na may sakit sa liver, ating kilalanin. Batang walang tigil sa pagkatok at panlilimos sa mga bahay sa Quezon City para makatulong sa kanyang pamilya, nirespondehan. At mga bagong siga sa kalsada, haharurot na sa pagresponde sa mga aksidente sa daan. Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi. Ito ang Responde, mata ng mamamayan.
Welcome back, guys. We got one last segment, so buckle on up. Back to more depressing Laker talk, unfortunately. Anyone that's watched a Laker game this year, it's been extremely apparent that Russell Westbrook has struggled with his game. Defense, questionable. Playmaking, also questionable. Shot taking, horrendous. Now, the media and the fans have made a pun of Westbrook's name to go with his shooting struggles, and it's not anything new, but Russell said enough is enough and has publicly said that he can no longer tolerate Westbrick as a nickname. So let's ask our panel. Ben, should we stop calling Westbrook Westbrick?
Well, Westbrook has become the poster child for the Lakers' struggles, and I feel him. And if your family's being threatened and attacked as well, and it affects your family, I think I would feel the same with Russell, and I would defend my family as well. You can call me different names, but what involves with my family, I think there's always a tipping point for the fans and for the players. I think there should be still respect for the players. They play for the fans, and I think the fans should give respect for the players as well. But I think there's always a line where you have to be respectful as well. But I think at this time, if I heard that Westbrook families stopped watching him during the games because of this name calling, I think this has to stop. And we are all for the players, and I think the fans should also be be respectful as well. Do not call names for the players. They can call if they're really frustrated about the player, but they have to also consider the families going to be involved as well.
Sure. No, I understand that, and I respect that families need to have that respect, right? There's a line that has to be drawn. You got to keep away from the kids, from the wife. I get it, 100%. But at the same time, too, though, like I think there's 44 million reasons why he should be open to taking taking some name calling, especially if you're suffering. Not suffering, especially if you're struggling as much as he has. And it's one of those things where it gets very frustrating to see this product, and not all the blame goes on Russell Westbrook. I understand 100%, but it's the fall off from his skills beforehand to the product that we're seeing right now is completely different. So let's go to EJ. Where is that post All-Star break Westbrook that the Wizards were blessed with last year? We didn't get that.
I mean, I don't know if you would consider that being blessed, that we were blessed with that last year. I mean, honestly, he plays the same game that he does with the Lakers that he did with the Wizards. The only thing is he had a little bit more incentive last year. He was out there chasing the triple-double all-time record. So he had a little bit more, and he was running the team, right? The ball was in his hands, and there wasn't a lot of backlash in the background where Frank Vogel's deciding whether or not to bench him, or even the front office insisting that Frank Vogel needs to bench Russell Westbrook. That wasn't part of the job description when Russell Westbrook was traded into the Lakers, and I don't know how much of a difference it would make to bench the guy. The guy, he's still the best point guard that you can have out there on the floor. He still gives it his all every single play. It's just his shot hasn't been falling for him this season, and I don't know if you can attribute that to the different injuries that he's amassed now at this tenure of his career. But the guy is still averaging 18 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Those are great numbers for any other player in the NBA. But I mean, this guy is top 75 in NBA history. So there's a little bit more of a pedestal that he has to reach because he's proven that over the past seasons. And that's what we're comparing him to, is what he's done in the past and not now.
Sure. And it's difficult for me as, like a Laker fan, and I watch a lot of basketball, but admittedly, I only watched more so the highlights, and Russell Westbrook throughout his career has been a human highlight. He really has been.
Yep.
Like nasty dunks, nasty assists, just filling up the stat sheet. But
game winners.
The first year that I've actually watched, majority of the Laker games, until I just can't, and they're just getting blown out, and I'm just disgusted. And I have to turn off the TV. But like actually seeing his game after game, it really goes to show that he has I realize that as an NBA player, to play the top level, you have to have that it's not the word conceited, but you have to have that confidence of believing in yourself and believing that any decision that you make is the best decision. And I think that is a strength and also a weakness in his situation, because it's a close game, they're obviously leaving you wide open to shoot, and you think that the best decision is for you to shoot that shot. It is not, and he keeps doing it over and over, and that that free throw line extended jumper that he tries to bank every time is just a horrible shot.
That's what I'm saying. That's the same shot. That's the same Westbrook that we had last year. And honestly, they're in the same position as the Wizards were last year, at the brink of making a play-in. The
Wizards didn't also have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And,
Yes.
I think that's the biggest difference. But enough depressing things. Let's go to the last topic, the question of the week, guys. The Carson Wentz trade, it looks questionable at best for the Commanders. Yeah. But who knows? He might revive his career, ball out for DC. For the Colts, it may look good now, but it may bite them in the back, back later. I mean, we don't know. The question is, for our question of the week, which trade looked bad up front, but actually ended up great for both teams? I'll start. So mine, I mean, I don't know if I've told you guys this. Shaq's my favorite player ever. And it broke my heart when he was traded to Miami. He forced his way out, right? Him and Kobe weren't getting along anymore. And he was traded for Lamar Odom, Karan Butler, Brian Grant. That looked like a one-sided trade. But at the end of the day, Shaq got a chip with Miami. Lakers eventually won back-to-back chips with Sixth Man of the Year, Lamar Odom. So it ended up working out well for both. Ben, what's your look bad, ended up being great trade?
Oh, well, for me, Kawhi and DeMar DeRozan, for me, bad for the Spurs, but good for the Raptors, and ended up getting a championship for the team.
Great. That's a great example. How about you, EJ?
Yeah, mine is going to be in the NFL. When the Chiefs decided to trade Alex Smith. That opened the way for Patrick Mahomes. They get a ring out of it. Alex Smith should have had a great career over here in Washington. Unfortunately, gets injured, but has a great comeback from that injury. And his family brought to tears when he was able to come back to the field. So it is a moment of strength for Alex Smith and his family. So it ended up being good for both teams, because you could get injured in any game. And for him to come back like that, it only happened because of all the things that Washington was going through. So it ended up being a good trade for both.
And strength of will. I mean, that was awesome. I mean, great examples, guys. Great input today. And everyone, that's all the time that we have for this week's episode. On behalf of the three of us on our panel, thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to tune in again next week. Make sure to visit our websites at eaglenews.net, eaglenews.live, eaglenewslive.com, and watch us on net25.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Eagle News to join the conversation. For Eagle News, I'm Ken Cruz. We live in interesting times.